The river had grown quieter with age. Its banks, once sharp and full of wildflowers, now sagged under ivy and reeds. Emma stopped at the edge of the clearing, her breath catching at the sight before her, the bridge. It was smaller than she remembered. Its wooden planks faded to silver, its ropes frayed but still clinging. She hadn't seen it in more than 20 years, yet it stood stubborn, silent, as though waiting for her return. The breeze rattled the boards softly, like a whisper across time. She placed a hand on the railing. Beneath her fingers, faint carvings appeared, letters scratched into the wood long ago. S and J, forever. Her heart lurched. That was her and Samuel, her older brother. And you watching this pause for a moment. Have you ever gone back to a place from childhood, only to find it smaller, quieter, but still alive with memory? Tell us in the comments. What place holds your childhood vows, your hidden promises? And don't forget to subscribe to Years Ago Stories. Each week, we return to forgotten places where time left echoes and where memories wait to be heard. Emma traced the carving with her fingertip, her throat tightening. The letters were rough, uneven. She remembered the day clearly now, 2 children crouched with a pocket knife, giggling nervously as they swore a promise. Forever, Samuel had whispered. No matter what, we'll always come back here together. At the time, it felt unbreakable. But decades had passed. Life had scattered them. Misunderstandings had carved deeper rifts than the river below. And the promise, like the carving, had been left to weather. She stepped onto the first plank. It groaned, but held. The water below reflected the late afternoon sun, shards of gold trembling across the current. She remembered how they used to dash across it barefoot, daring each other to look down. To cross it meant courage. To carve their names into it meant eternity. But eternity had ended, or so she thought. As Emma stood in the middle of the bridge, she noticed something new, fresh initials carved on the opposite railing. The letters were shaky, recent. She leaned closer, her breath catching. S. I'm still here. Her vision blurred. Could it be? Had Samuel returned? She staggered back, the boards creaking beneath her. Suddenly, the bridge wasn't just wood and rope. It was a message, a call. Her brother, after all these years, had left his mark. Emma whispered into the wind, Are you waiting for me too? The river carried her words away, but the bridge seemed to listen, steady and patient. She knew then, this was not the end of a forgotten promise. This was the beginning of finding it again. Emma could not sleep that night. The image of the fresh carving S, I'm still here, burned behind her eyes. It had been more than 2 decades since she had spoken to Samuel. They were children when they made their vow on the bridge, teenagers when they laughed about it, and bitter young adults when silence replaced every word. She had not dared to hope he might return. Yet, there it was, proof scratched into wood. The next morning, Emma rummaged through the attic of her mother's house. Dust coated the rafters, cobwebs hung like lace. She pulled out a trunk that had belonged to her father. Inside were photo albums, letters, and one small tin box tied with string. She opened it carefully. Inside lay childhood treasures, pebbles painted with colors, folded paper boats, and at the very bottom, a photograph. 2 children standing on the bridge, arms around each other, grinning with missing teeth. Samuel was taller, protective, his hand resting on her shoulder. She was laughing, her hair tangled in the wind. On the back of the photograph were scrawled words in Samuel's sloppy handwriting. Forever, remember? Emma pressed the photo to her chest. Tears pricked her eyes. The promise hadn't been her imagination. It had been real, spoken and believed by both of them. Downstairs, her mother sat by the kitchen window, sipping tea. Emma placed the photo on the table. Did you know about this? Emma asked. Her mother looked at it for a long time, then sighed. I knew you 2 carved your names there. Your father told me once, but when Samuel left, she trailed off. Emma's throat tightened. When he left, we stopped speaking. But why? Why didn't you tell me he tried to reach out? Her mother's eyes filled with regret. Because I thought it was your fight to mend, not mine. Families break in ways mothers can't always fix. I prayed the bridge would wait for you both. Emma leaned back, stunned. It did. The bridge waited. And maybe he did too. That afternoon she returned, the photo tucked into her coat. The sky was overcast, the air sharp with the scent of rain. She stepped onto the planks again, this time braver. She pressed the photograph against the railing, aligning it with the carving. The background matched the same oak tree, the same worn ropes. For a moment it felt as though time folded, the children in the photo laughing beside her. She whispered into the emptiness, "Samuel, are you still here?" The wind carried her words, and somewhere a bird called back, echoing across the river. As she leaned over the railing, something caught her eye. Between the boards, tucked deep into a crack, was a piece of paper sealed in a plastic sleeve. Her heart pounded as she pried it out. The handwriting was rough, but unmistakable. Samuel's. "Emma, if you ever come back, know that I did too. I'm sorry for the silence. I never stopped being your brother. If this bridge still stands, so does my promise. S." Her knees buckled. She sat heavily on the plank, the letter trembling in her hands. Samuel had been here recently enough for the ink to remain fresh. Memories tumbled over her. The last time they stood here together, voices raised in anger. She had accused him of leaving her behind, of choosing his own path over their family. He had accused her of clinging to the past, of chaining him to a life he didn't want. Their words had been sharper than knives. Neither had crossed the bridge after that day, until now. Emma rose, clutching the letter. The bridge groaned, but it held firm. She felt as though it urged her forward, toward reconciliation, toward truth. For the first time in years, she wanted to find her brother not with anger, but with hope. She whispered into the cold air, "If you're still here, Samuel, I will be too. I'll find you." That night she returned home and opened her journal. She taped the photograph and letter onto its pages. Beneath them she wrote, "Promise renewed. I will cross the bridge again, not just in memory, but with you, Samuel." The words steadied her. She knew the path ahead would not be easy. Old wounds lingered, pride cut deep. But the bridge had not fallen, and neither had their bond. Emma closed the journal, her heart lighter than it had been in decades. The story was not finished. It was only beginning. The letter in Samuel's handwriting did more than rattle Emma's memory. It opened a door she'd kept barred for years. That evening, she sat at the kitchen table with the bridge photograph spread out beside the letter, a mug of tea growing cold at her elbow. She let the past come, not as a blur of grievances, but as a sequence of moments that had once felt ordinary. They had been inseparable as children. Samuel taught her to skip stones. She taught him how to braid clover crowns. On the bridge, they invented the 3-breath oath. Inhale, exhale, inhale, then speak a promise only if it could survive that small stretch of silence. They swore they'd never become strangers. They swore they'd always cross together. It began to fray the summer. Samuel turned 17. He wanted to leave their river town for a technical program 2 states away. Their father's sudden illness turned the house into a ward, and Emma, 14 then, became her mother's second pair of hands. Samuel offered to stay 1 more year, 1 more. The promise sounded like a cushion against the jagged edge of change. But a year has a way of ending. When acceptance letters arrived again, their father had improved, but the bills had not. Samuel won a small scholarship, not nearly enough. The night the argument exploded, they met on the bridge because that was what they always did when words felt too much for walls to hold. "You're leaving," Emma said, as if naming it could stop it. "I'm going," Samuel answered, jaw set. "If I don't, I'll disappear here, Em." "You'll disappear if you do," she shot back. "From us." The planks sighed under their weight. The river ran fast from spring rain. Samuel placed his hand over their carving S and J protective, almost apologetic. "I'll write every week. I'll come back every holiday. The bridge will keep me honest." "What if the bridge can't hold both worlds?" she said. "What if it's one or the other?" He didn't answer then, and not answering calcified into a choice. He left at dawn with a duffel bag and a packed lunch, a kiss on their mother's hair, and a promise whispered into the door jamb. He didn't wake Emma to say goodbye. She pretended that meant he wasn't truly gone. The first letters came like clockwork, stamped with city postmarks and the breathless energy of a life beginning. Emma read them on the steps, the dog napping across her feet. Samuel had classes, friends, late-night study sessions, odd jobs, certainty. She had shifts at the diner after school, trips to the pharmacy for their father's prescriptions, the bridge in the distance like a landmark for a country she no longer visited. When her replies grew shorter, he started calling on Sundays. "You're quiet," he'd say. "You're busy," she'd reply. Silence laid its foundation. The call that built the final wall came in winter. Their father relapsed. Emma phoned Samuel at the machine shop where he'd just started training. He picked up on the third ring, breathless. "I can't come this week," he said before she asked. "If I miss the certification, I lose the spot." "He might not have that long," Emma said. "I know," he whispered, and the knowing hurt more than denial. "I'll come on Friday." Their father died on Thursday afternoon. The sky, the color of solder. Emma arranged the service, signed papers, stood with their mother between two flower arrangements that smelled like weddings pretending to be consolations. Samuel arrived late Friday, his bag banging against his knee as he hurried up the aisle after the final hymn. He folded into their mother's arms, then reached for Emma, but her body had learned the shape of withholding. She stepped back. He flinched as if she'd struck him. They spoke on the bridge that night. The boards were slick with frost. "I'm sorry," he said. "I wanted to be here sooner." "You wanted?" she repeated. "I needed. I was trying to build a life that could help all of us." "You were trying to build your life," she said. "And maybe that was necessary. But don't call it ours." He asked for forgiveness. She asked for proof. Time, that terrible negotiator, offered neither. They stopped crossing. The bridge, faithful to its purpose, kept standing anyway. Years passed in the slow arithmetic of holidays missed and postcards sent, then not sent. Emma stayed. She finished school at night, took a full-time position at the clinic, learned the weight of other people's emergencies. Her mother learned to live alone in a house that had once echoed with two children racing through rooms. Samuel moved from the machine shop to a fabrication firm, from an apartment to a narrow house with a porch that faced a different river. He sent a change of address card with a line at the bottom, "I'm still here." She read it once and slid it into a drawer. What changed? Not everything, just enough. The week their mother fell and broke her wrist, Emma took leave to care for her. At night, when the pain medication made their mother drowsy, Emma sat at the kitchen table sorting through paperwork. She found a note in their mother's handwriting, neat and certain. "Talk to your brother. The bridge is still there." Beneath it, their mother had drawn a small oval and two parallel lines, her version of the river and the rails. Emma laughed and cried at once. She told herself she would call when the cast came off. Then the clinic needed staff for a flu surge. Then a neighbor's child fell sick. Then the seasons changed. Delay is a kind of decision that disguises itself as mercy. Now, holding Samuel's new letter, the one scraped into wood and the one tucked between planks, she realized her mother had been right in the simplest way. The bridge was still there. Its constancy wasn't an accusation. It was an invitation. She had mistaken the span for a verdict. It had only ever been a way across. She returned the next morning at first light. Mist hung low over the river. Spider webs jeweled the ropes. At the entrance, she paused and took 3 slow breaths, the old oath waking in her body, like a chord remembered. Inhale, exhale, inhale. Then she spoke aloud. voice steadying with each word. I promise to cross with you, Samuel, if you'll meet me halfway. She took a step, then another, listening to the plank's answer. Midway across, she stopped where the new carving caught the sun. S. I'm still here. She rested her palm on the letters, as if adding warmth could make them travel. So am I, she whispered. So am I. Back home, she pulled her phone from a drawer where it had lived like a buried relic. She scrolled through old numbers until his name appeared, unfamiliar and intimate at once. She started a message, deleted it, and started again. Found your words on the bridge. Friday at dusk? 3 breaths. J. She hovered, then tapped send. The message left with a small sound, as if a thread had been thrown back across a gap. She didn't know if he had the same number. She didn't know where he lived now, or who waited for him at night, or what he had learned to love that she did not. She knew only this. A bridge had 2 ends, and she was finally standing on hers with both feet. The river moved, as it always did, indifferent and faithful. Somewhere downstream, children would carve their first oaths into some other railing. Somewhere upstream, an older pair of hands might trace faded letters and remember. Emma imagined her brother doing the same, reaching out, reading the line she had written in the air between them. Friday at dusk. The words felt like a key slipped into a lock, not turning yet, but ready. When the reply came an hour later, it was only 4 words. It was more than enough. Halfway, I'll be there. Friday arrived with a sky the color of pewter, clouds heavy but undecided. Emma paced her living room, checking her phone every few minutes. She had not seen Samuel in 20 years. How does one rehearse for that? She tried to imagine his face older, lined, softened, or hardened by time. She wondered if he would recognize hers. At dusk, she walked to the river. Mist curled over the water. The bridge stretched before her, trembling with the evening breeze. She stopped at the edge and took 3 slow breaths, their childhood ritual. Then she stepped onto the boards. Halfway across, she saw him. Samuel stood tall, shoulders broader, hair touched with gray. He wore a coat too light for the cold, hands shoved in pockets as if unsure whether to reach or retreat. When his eyes found hers, he froze. Then, slowly, he smiled. Emma, he said. Her name left his mouth like a prayer he wasn't sure he had permission to speak. Her throat tightened. You came. You called. His eyes flicked to the railing where fresh carvings marked his message. I wasn't sure you'd answer. I almost didn't, she admitted. But the bridge didn't forget. Neither did I. They stood in the middle, river rushing below. Neither wanted to move forward or back, as though the planks beneath them were neutral ground. Samuel broke the silence first. I'm sorry I wasn't there when Dad passed. Emma swallowed hard. I know, and I hated you for it. He nodded, shame in his eyes. I hated myself too. I thought if I built something bigger career, money, it would redeem the absence. But absence doesn't redeem, it just grows. Her voice wavered. I needed you, Sam, not your success. You. I know, he whispered. For a long time they let the river speak. Then Emma pulled the letter from her pocket, the one hidden in the bridge's crack. She held it out. Samuel blinked, startled. You found it. I did. And it told me you were still my brother. He exhaled shakily. I wrote that 2 years ago. I came back once, hoping maybe you'd be here. I left it because I didn't know what else to do. Then I came back again, carved the words, waited. Emma's eyes filled. I almost missed it, but I didn't, and I won't again. Samuel reached for the railing, fingers brushing over the old carving. S and J, forever. The letters were weathered, but clear. We were kids when we wrote this. I thought forever meant easy. Turns out it means trying again, even after you've failed. Emma placed her hand beside his. Then let's try again. Maybe forever can start here. Tonight, he nodded, eyes shining. Halfway across, they stood together, the years between them narrowing into the space of one step. As night settled, the mist lifted, revealing stars scattered across the sky. The river shimmered with their reflection. The bridge creaked softly beneath their weight, not in protest but in welcome. Emma looked at her brother and whispered, "Let's not let silence take us again." Samuel squeezed her hand. Agreed. For the first time in decades, they crossed the bridge together side by side until their feet touched the far bank. The days after their meeting on the bridge moved with a rhythm both fragile and hopeful. Emma and Samuel agreed to meet again, not in cafes or on city streets, but at the river, where every plank carried their childhood and every creak felt like a heartbeat. The bridge had once been the scene of their parting. Now it became their table, their chapel, their confessional. On Saturday, they brought candles. Emma placed them along the railing, their flames trembling against the night. Samuel set down a thermos of coffee, the smell rising like a comfort from their mother's kitchen long ago. They sat on opposite sides at first, legs dangling over the edge, the current murmuring below. "I need to tell you something," Samuel began, his voice raw. "I didn't stay away only because of pride. There was shame, too. After Dad died, I thought I'd abandon you. And when you pulled away, I believed I had lost you for good. I told myself staying silent hurt less than hearing you say it aloud." Emma turned, her face lit by the candle glow. "You never lost me. You made me angry, yes. You made me grieve twice, once for Dad, once for you. But even when I hated you, I wanted you back." Samuel bowed his head. "I didn't know how to come home." Emma stood and walked to the carving, tracing the initials with her finger. "We wrote forever here. I thought it was childish once, but now I see it wasn't. We were children, but the vow was true. We just didn't know what forever demanded." Samuel joined her, resting his palm on the wood beside hers. "Forever demanded patience, forgiveness, more than I gave." Emma shook her head. "Forever demanded both of us. And now, we're both here." Samuel pulled a folded envelope from his pocket. "I found this cleaning out my house last year. It's Mom's handwriting." He handed it to her. Emma opened it carefully. Inside was a note. "When the bridge still stands, so does love. Do not let pride wash it away." Emma pressed the paper to her lips, tears sliding down her cheeks. "She knew," she whispered. "She trusted this bridge more than us." Samuel smiled sadly. "And she was right. The bridge kept waiting until we did." They sat again, this time side by side. Emma spoke softly. "We can't change the years we lost." "No," Samuel agreed. "But we can change the years ahead." She nodded. "Then let's make a new promise. Not carved in wood this time. Not hidden in silence. Spoken, clear." They clasped hands, fingers cold but steady. Together they said, "We promise never to let silence divide us again." The river seemed to pause, as if listening. The candles flickered higher, their flames steadying in the breeze. For the first time in decades, Emma felt whole. The truth wasn't that they had broken the promise of childhood. The truth was that the promise had bent, cracked, and suffered storms, but it had not died. It had lived in the bridge, in their mother's quiet notes, in the ache that never let them forget each other. The promise had been waiting, like the bridge itself, for two pairs of feet to return. Emma looked at Samuel, her voice calm and sure. "The bridge didn't save us. We saved ourselves by remembering. But the bridge gave us the courage to begin." Samuel squeezed her hand. "And this time, we'll keep crossing together." They rose, walking in step, the candles behind them glowing like guardians. The bridge creaked softly in farewell, but also in blessing, as if satisfied that its task had been fulfilled. The following Friday, Emma returned to the bridge at sunset. The air smelled of damp earth and pine, the river swollen from spring rain. Samuel was already there, leaning against the railing, his face softened by golden light. For the first time, Emma noticed how alike they still were, the same tilt of the head, the same half-smile. Time had aged them, but it hadn't erased their belonging to each other. They crossed the span together, their footsteps steady, the planks groaning in rhythm. When they reached the center, they stopped, as they always had. Samuel pulled a small object from his coat pocket, a pocket knife, dulled with years but still sharp enough. "I thought maybe," he said carefully, "we could carve again, not to rewrite the past, just to mark this new chapter." Emma hesitated, then nodded. Side by side, they carved into the opposite railing, beneath the fresh initials Samuel had left. S and J, still here. The letters were uneven, the wood splintering in places, but they glowed in the last light of day. Emma traced them with her fingertip, tears filling her eyes. They sat down on the center plank, legs dangling over the water. The current ran fast, but steady, carrying branches and blossoms downstream. Emma whispered, "I used to think forever meant unbroken. No cracks, no failures." Samuel shook his head gently. "Forever means showing up again, even after cracks, even after silence." She leaned against him. "Then we've kept our promise in the only way anyone can. Imperfectly, but truly." He smiled. "That's all any promise asks." As night settled, lanterns from the nearby town shimmered in the distance. Samuel spoke of his life in another city, the people he had loved and lost, the small home he had built. Emma told him about the clinic, the friends who had become family, the garden she still tended at their mother's house. Their words braided together like strands of rope, fragile alone but stronger in twine. Finally, Samuel said, "We can't undo the years we missed, but we can add to the years left. Let's meet here once a year, no matter what. One evening, one promise." Emma's heart swelled. "Yes, no matter what." They rose, brushing dust from their coats. At the far end of the bridge, Emma turned back. The span stretched behind them, lit faintly by moonrise. She realized the bridge was not only wood and rope, it was a mirror. It reflected their failures and their forgiveness, their distance and their reunion. She whispered, almost to herself, "The bridge didn't keep us apart. It waited for us to come back." Samuel placed a hand on her shoulder. "And it always will." And now to you watching this story unfold, perhaps you too have a bridge, not of wood and rope, but of memory. A place where you once made a promise, a silence that has lingered too long, a person you loved but could not reach. Share it with us in the comments. Your story matters, your promise matters. And if this journey touched you, don't let it fade. Subscribe to Years Ago Stories and turn on the notification bell so you'll be here when we cross into the next memory together. Emma and Samuel walked side by side into the night, their breath forming small clouds in the cool air. Behind them, the bridge creaked softly, as if relieved. It had carried children once, then silence, and now at last it carried reunion. At the center railing, two sets of initials glowed faintly, one carved by children, one by adults. Both whispered the same truth. Promises bend, promises wait, promises, when kept, keep us.